Hello, good morning. I think we're a little bit early still. This is Bryna, live from Costa Rica at the Monteverde Butterfly Gardens, beaming into Ottawa at Little Ray's Nature Center. So, we're going to talk today about a bunch of different cool bugs that we have both in Costa Rica and some other ones that you guys have in Canada, and just talk about and relate some of the incredible differences that we see in insects in Canada and here in Monteverde, Costa Rica. So again, remembering that we have incredible diversity here in Costa Rica. So I am Bryna, and I am live from the Monteverde Butterfly Gardens in Monteverde, Costa Rica. So we're actually at quite a high elevation, and the mist and the clouds are actually coming up right now, and may start to come into this reception area that I'm in. So if I get blurry, it's because we're literally in a cloud forest, and sometimes I'm in the clouds. But we've got all of this really, really incredible diversity here in Costa Rica, and I wanted to go over a little bit, just sort of to give perspective about how crazy that is. So Costa Rica is only about 51,000, I think, square kilometers. So we can actually fit 195 Costa Ricas inside of Canada. So the land mass is teeny, teeny, tiny. We've got this tiny little country, right connected between North America and South America, and then there's like teeny, tiny Costa Rica, and then teeny, tiny Panama, and they are right there. But Costa Rica has 500,000 different species. Anyone know how many Canada has? 80,000. So Costa Rica has 6 times more diversity crammed in to 195 less times the size of. That was clearly not pre-planned well enough in how I would explain all of these complicated numbers. Costa Rica's tiny, lots of diversity. Canada, huge, much less diversity. So we've got 6 times more animals in a way tinier space, which is really cool, but also often makes things like a little bit more fragile. If you can think, like, stuffing that many different species in, you're gonna have a lot more species that have like teeny tiny little ranges, because they're all competing to survive in such little space. And so any major changes here in Costa Rica, you're gonna see the potential of a major impact that could even cause a localized extinction or something like that. And so one of the major issues that we have is just trying to make sure that we're protecting as much land as possible. And that's one of the coolest things about Costa Rica is they are just making new national parks all the time. There's tons of privately protected land, like the land the Butterfly Gardens runs on. So we, nothing in comparison. We've only got about a hectare, but we're able to protect and produce a bunch of native species and native land in there. And Elena, I hear you. I understand that people really want to see beautiful butterflies, and it is in my goals trying to set it up. So here in Costa Rica, we have a lot of internet issues. It's not our best thing. And so I'm trying to get a router delivered from Amazon. Takes a little longer here. There's no overnight business. So that we can actually go live from inside of one of the greenhouses. But for now, we unfortunately don't have strong enough internet to beam us into one of the greenhouses. But as soon as we do, we'll be live from there, I promise. So stick with us. But we're still going to show you tons of cool stuff until we get to there. And so one of the species that we do find in Canada and Costa Rica, that is a beautiful butterfly, is of course the monarch. And while I'm not going to hold any live ones so that they don't fly away into the open air to be eaten by a bird, I do here have a chrysalis of a monarch butterfly. And to me, one of the coolest things about monarchs is how they actually get their names. So a lot of people, I think, don't actually understand where the monarch butterfly gets its name from. There's a lot of guesses of, like, because they have such this huge range, that's where that name comes from. But it's actually let's see, we're gonna focus, is because it wears a tiny golden crown. So that's actually why the monarch is called the monarch, is because monarchs wear a tiny golden crown. And so this beautiful butterfly will develop inside of here and actually be able to emerge. So the way butterfly metamorphosis works is absolutely crazy. We talked a little bit about it last week with beetles. But basically what's going to happen here is the caterpillar pretty much poops out all of its guts and there's a little bit left. It sheds its exoskeleton. This is a new exoskeleton underneath. So this creature is actually alive in here. And this monarch butterfly is developing. So it's creating a whole bunch of new cells that will fill out this chrysalis and then become a butterfly that's so big it doesn't fit in this exoskeleton anymore. So it'll start pumping air into its abdomen and that will crack open this old skin and then the butterfly emerges. And so that's a relatively small one. Around here we get way bigger species. So this is actually the chrysalis of a blue morpho, and I'm going to see if I can get him to move. There you go. Bop, bop. It's an early morning butterfly dance body. They don't dance very well. So these chrysalis are actually alive and can respond to different types of stimulus. So when you poke it, it moves, which is pretty cool. And then, what else have we got here? So that was the chrysalis of the blue morpho, which is this butterfly here. So this is a pinned specimen that we created from one of our butterflies who was done with its life cycle. When you're this big, you don't tend to live very long. So blue morpho butterflies will actually only live for about 2 weeks, which is a huge difference when you compare it to those monarch butterflies. So everyone talks about the incredible migration that monarchs do, which is incredible, and they do it. But they only go as far as Mexico. So the reason we actually have monarchs here is because we too have monarchs, but our population stays here year round. So once they land in Costa Rica, they've got everything they need. There's food, there's mates, it's beautiful temperatures, and so there's no reason for monarchs to leave the country. So they stay inside of the country. They just do a little migration over top of the continental divide to the Pacific and the Atlantic. But they don't do any of those big long haul migrations like you see with your Canadian species. And then with the blue morphos, they're living in Costa Rica, as well as, excuse me, further north and further south, inside of the Americas as well. So they're not getting into the US or anything like that, but they're all the way down throughout South America too. So this blue morpho butterfly, like I said, is this huge giant butterfly flying through these beautiful forests, as a giant blue beacon, which is one of the things that's like really confusing a lot of the time for people, is why would you want to be a giant blue butterfly? It just would make everything want to eat you. And it does. So if you think about when you're picking who you want to be the father of your children, you don't usually want to pick somebody who's dangerous, who's a giant blue beacon trying to attract all of the predators after you. You want to try and pick somebody who's going to live a safe, boring life. Well, apparently not with monarchs. They live a pretty with morphos. They live a pretty crazy life. So to them, the ladies are like, you know what? That guy was a giant blue beacon, but he didn't get eaten. So he's going to have great genetics. I'm going to have his babies. And so you end up with these huge giant butterflies that are incredibly fast, impossible to photograph. One time we had a team from Time Magazine here for 4 days trying to get a shot of a blue morpho with its wings open. They cheated. They used a pin specimen. And so it is really, really incredible how difficult it is to try and get a photo of a blue morpho with its wings open. So, monarchs, on the other hand, are going to be a little bit smaller. They've got much thicker, heavier wings because they have to do this crazy migration. Now, monarchs have a two different lifespans. So, the monarchs that you would see in Ontario at the beginning of the year are the grandchildren of the ones from the year before who migrated. And those monarchs only live for about 3 months. They lay their eggs, their caterpillars raise up, and then these beautiful adult butterflies emerge, and those butterflies are going to live for 9+ months because they get ready, they're prepping, getting everything together up in Canada, and then they're gonna long haul fly all the way down to a very small number of mountain ranges inside of Mexico. So there's tiny little mountains, big huge trees. The trees help keep the heat in, so as it gets cold overnight, the monarchs live. They hibernate there over several months, and then they take off and fly all the way north to Florida. At that point, they're going to lay their eggs and die. So they don't actually go all the way back up to Ontario. The butterflies that you see arriving in Ontario will be the grandkids of the butterflies that actually left to go to Mexico. There's really cool programs that I highly recommend. You can order them online. They're these little stickers, and you can tag the monarchs that you find in August, or even, there's some stragglers probably still now, that fly down to Mexico, and then kids in Mexico will get a small amount of money if they find any of these tags. So if any butterflies have died, or butterflies are sitting on the tree with their tag, if they take a photo or the number, then they can report that to the researchers who are trying to see how many monarchs are making it. And so there's these really little lightweight stickers. It's tons of fun. For a while, I was helping translate letters between the kids who tagged the monarchs in Canada and the kids in Mexico who found the monarchs, because these two kids in Canada and Mexico held the same butterfly in their hands. How cool is that? So this migration is so incredible and so beautiful, and definitely at risk. We hear all the time about how the monarch numbers are going down. A lot of that is because of issues in Mexico. So because of illegal logging and clearing inside of the overwintering sites in Mexico. And that's a lot actually because of demand for avocados. So I highly recommend that if you're going to eat any avocados, it shouldn't be while you're in Canada, because that's weird. You don't grow them there. But if you're gonna, just make sure that they come from a reliable source, because what's happening right now is you see these groups of people illegally cutting down forests that are protected so that they can grow avocado trees because they're in such high demand. And so that is actually a huge problem for monarchs. One of the huge problems for monarchs also was that milkweed, the host plant for monarchs, was actually on the noxious yard list in Ontario up until just maybe 10 years ago. So it was actually illegal to have their host plant in your yard because it was considered a dangerous plant. So luckily we've moved on from that, and now you can get all kinds of free plugs of monarch food from the David Suzuki Foundation and a bunch of other organizations. If you're near Guelph, you can reach out to the Guelph Arboretum, but there's tons of different ways to get free milkweed for you to plant in your yard so that you can watch this whole life cycle yourself. Because how incredible is it when you go out in your yard and there's these beautiful gems, like you're walking along and then all of a sudden there's this shiny, beautiful creature with a little golden crown, and you get to watch it become a butterfly. Oh, pollinator gardening is where it's at. You get to have this whole ecosystem. And my favorite part of pollinator gardening is it means you don't have to cut the grass. And if you don't have to cut the grass, then you don't have to nag somebody to cut the grass when they were supposed to. So much better option. You got the bugs happy, you're happy, nobody has to cut the grass. Never ending benefits. So if you're looking for a great book for our Ontario friends, this is a great book by John Acorn, which I don't know if anybody remembers this fantastic Canadian television show called The Nature Nut, but he made this great book of Guide to Bugs of Ontario. It is super good for kids and adults alike. So it actually has some really nice pictures and a lot of fantastic information. So I'm going to link all of the books that I suggest at the end of this inside the comments for the videos so that you guys can check them out. But this is a fantastic book that covers a lot of stuff. So one of my other favorite Ontario insects is the woolly bear. So this is another great book. It's called Caterpillars: Find, Identify, and Raise Your Own by Chris Early, who's the naturalist at the Guelph Arboretum. Fantastic guy. But a lot of us have seen woolly bears wandering around. I've found them all over when I grew up in Quebec and working in Ontario. So these lovely creatures go all the way up to the high Arctic. And they have one of the longest lifespans of any moth. But not as a moth. It's as a caterpillar. Because they're so far north, most of the year they are frozen. And so it takes this poor little creature 7 years to get to the point where it can go through metamorphosis and become an adult. So it's this caterpillar who gets like, the defrost happens, there's all these great lichens, and it's like, quick, eat, nom, 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 nom. It goes through one instar, and then pff, frozen again. And then it's got to wait to defrost, quick, eat, 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 gets a little bit bigger, and pff, frozen again. And so you've got this incredibly annoying system where you have to keep waiting and like 10 months of frozen for 2 months of eating so that eventually you can go through metamorphosis to have maybe a few short days as an adult to find someone to mate with, lay eggs, to start this whole freeze-unfreeze process all over again. And they're not the only ones that go through this frozen-unfrozen process. So a lot of insects in Canada will overwinter in a frozen state, which is pretty stinking cool. I mean, there's cockroaches in the Northeast that can spend up to, over 40 days at minus 40. So incredible ability to freeze and then unfreeze, which is so fantastic. And so one of these other life cycles that's very similar to that would be the cicada, right? So you've got these cicadas that eventually will come out and start screaming, but it's totally legit, and it's just because you didn't think about it. This poor creature, again, same thing, had to wait. So, bugs are adults when they have their wings. If they don't have their wings yet, then that usually means they're in their larval stage or their nymph stage, depending on whether they go through complete or incomplete metamorphosis. So this poor little creature is underneath the ground in total darkness its whole life, sipping from tree sap, waiting to get big enough. Dark, lonely, spends months and months and months frozen, and then finally it gets to come out from underneath the ground. It defrosts, it molts, it's got these gorgeous wings. Wouldn't you want to make sure you got everyone's attention too? You'd be like, hello, sunshine! And so they're just sitting there screaming because they need all of that attention because they spent all that time underneath the ground in this sad, cold, horrible place. But again, this book, John Acorn, Bugs of Ontario, fantastic resource, great explanations. I really love the part about bumblebees. You guys have the cutest bumblebees in Ontario, and they're like fluffy, like chubby kittens that fly around. They're adorable. And you know what the cutest thing is? All right, so one of the reasons they ask you not to rake your lawn, well, not your homeowners association, but us entomologists, we ask that you guys don't clear your lawn because bees and bumblebees and all kinds of different insects will actually, like I said, overwinter in a frozen state, but inside those little leaves so that they're protected. And then the spring comes, and please don't remove them right away because they've got to warm up, shake it off, and then they'll fly out to get things going. And then these bumblebees, these new queens, are out searching for the perfect location to start their new colony. And you know where they're going to do that? where little field mice overwintered. So in the little nests of field mice that have left and gone on to start their lives, but where they hibernated, bumblebee queens will actually come in and start their new nests inside of the overwintering sites of mice, which is absolutely adorable. Just furry things on top of furry things. So we've got a lot of adorable creatures here in Costa Rica too, like this mimetica. Should check the time, see if I'm going to be late for the next one again. So this is a female leaf mimicking katydid. So this is her head down here. This is her ovipositor here. And so she looks just like a leaf, which is pretty crazy. Just like a leaf. Here is the male. And so this, just like the cicada, is another one of those loud voices at night. Because you can imagine when you look like a leaf, sometimes it can be a little bit challenging to find a mate. And so this little guy is the one at night. Please, psh, 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 making a little Ray, they promise they really are alive. See? Leaves don't hang on when you hold them upside down. But mimetica does. These are these big, long, lovely antennae. And so you can see males much smaller than females because there is a much larger investment in producing offspring by females than there is by males. And so in most of the insect world, you want to make sure that you're giving all those resources to the ladies. So if you only have so much food, you want the girls to eat it so that they can make nice, strong offspring. And so this is a great way for them to make sure that they get lots and lots of eggs. So she's going to use, she was showing her ovipositor earlier. This is what she actually uses. Come on. She doesn't want me to show you. This is her ovipositor, so that's actually what she'll lay her eggs with. So she pushes that into nice loose soil and will deposit those eggs into there. And then one of my other favorite Costa Rican insects that you guys definitely don't get in Canada is this beetle here. Let's see. It's not going to be very cooperative. This is an ironclad beetle. So this beetle actually has an exoskeleton that's, no, it's not gonna let me show you his face, is so strong that it can actually be run over by a car, which I know because one time I ran one over. We all have accidents, but I am the only one who goes back to make sure a bug is okay. So do a U-turn, come back, and that little beetle was walking down the road like nothing had happened. So their exoskeletons are actually so strong that there are several records of them being eaten by birds. They just take a quick tour of the digestive system, pop out the other side, they're alive. He just had an incredibly crappy day. I'm pausing for laughter. It's really weird doing programs when you can't see who's watching. And so, of course, the way worse day than our poor ironclad beetles is this guy here, which is a dung beetle, who's a little bit scared right now. So he's locked in all of his legs and his little face. So we'll see if he comes out. Now, dung beetles really do have the worst days on the planet. This guy has got to shovel poop. Not a little bit of poop, up to 800 times his body weight in poop, using his face. So next time you're like, today sucks, it doesn't. Because you're not shoveling 800 times your body weight in poop using only your face, I assume. But he's going to be sitting there shoveling his poop, making this gorgeous ball. Day's far from done because now this female shows up and she's like, wow, that's beautiful. And he's like, great, let's go. And so now he's got to roll 800 times his body weight in poop through the rainforest. Do you think that is easy? No, it is always uphill. And so there he is, rolling this poor poo ball up the hill. He finally gets there. He's like, whew. Poo ball rolls back down the hill. And so he's got to go back down there and get it, except that now a bunch of rivaling males have shown up, and they're like, we're here for the poo ball and your girlfriend, and he's got to stop and fight off these guys, and the poo ball just keeps rolling, and obviously the lady is not very impressed, so he's got to keep going down there, get it rolling all the way back until they find the perfect place. At that point, they dig a chamber, they roll the poo ball in, and it's the babies that actually eat all of that poop. Thank goodness, because without them, we would be literally neck deep. So all of these beetles are doing us an incredible service. They actually clean up all of this poop. And in the U.S., they actually save U.S. cattle ranchers an estimated $850 million a year in poo removal services, which is no small chunk of change. That's a lot of poop. So beetles, much more helpful than maybe we make them out to be. And again, I will link a bunch of really cool books for Ontario and here in Costa Rica for different insect identification guides, like another one for Canada. I don't know if you can tell. I haven't used this book at all. Is Marshall's guide to the insects of their natural history and diversity for Eastern North America. And it's all just pictures, which is amazing. Who doesn't love a book full of pictures of bugs? That's the best. And so this book is great. It's actually a textbook that he uses in his courses at the University of Guelph, but is completely relevant for anybody who just wants to get to know bugs in Ontario. So that one's great. And then I'll also link here, this is Insects of Tropical America, which there are not a lot of guides to bugs in Costa Rica. So if you're planning on coming down here in the future and you want to start getting excited and studying the different bugs, this one is great. Again, tons of information, tons of really great pictures. And then this one too, Hidden Kingdom, which just came out very recently. But it's got a lot of really cool creatures. Look at that. What bat is going to eat that katydid if it's going to get speared in the mouth by this unicorn? And so there's tons, and actually a bunch of these photos were taken at the Butterfly Gardens, which is really cool too. All right. Well, so send us messages, send us questions, please, before the next one. If there's, and again, I promise we'll try and get live in the Butterfly Gardens, but if there's anything else that you guys wanted me to cover or try and find for you guys to see, then let me know ahead of time, and we're here, ready, happy to talk about whatever you guys want to, bugs, anything about tropical ecology here in Central America. So let me know, keep me in the loop as to what you guys would like to hear, and I'm gonna go live in Hamilton now, so if you want to hear this all again, or something similar to it anyways, then join me over there. And it was lovely talking to all of you, and we'll talk soon. Thanks, guys.